The following program is an opinion program. The opinions expressed by the hosts and guests of this program are not the opinions of the management, staff, and advertisers of this station. Please direct all criticism, concern, and adulation to the hosts of this program.
Welcome back to Alabama Politics. This week, I am Dale Jackson. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm a radio talk show host. You can hear my show Monday through Friday from 5 to 9 a.m. on WVNN in Huntsville, and from 10 until noon on Talk 99.5 in Birmingham. With me, as always, Mecca Music from 256today.com. Smart news for smart people, but not smart enough to not let Yaffe fill in for me last week.
He did a great job. He did a great job.
I watched it. He did a job last week, okay? So that's very clear. We got a lot to talk about today. Cameron Smith will be with us from AL.com. I've got a partner shot about this Tyree Nichols case and how that's been handled. Stay tuned for that. But for right now, let's go ahead and get to that 2-minute warning. All right, let's talk about this prisoner situation here in the state of Alabama. You know, Marshall did stop a jailbreak. Okay, let's just be real about this. He did. They were going to let about 400 people out of prison, but all of them are scheduled to get out here relatively soon anyway, between 2 and 10 months from when they were going to let them out. And every month, more people become eligible. Now, I've talked to a lot of people about this. Steve Marshall, the Attorney General, the head of pardons and paroles, Cam Ward. Cameron Smith is going to be with us today. Cam Ward, who used to be a state senator. And basically, here's how it works. In 2021, they amended a law that made this happen. They all saw this coming, and wouldn't you know that it's right after an inauguration and right after an election?
So you call it a jailbreak, but again, like you just said, this was a law that was passed in 2021. So why the outrage now? Can people not add?
Well, I mean, the outrage now is because it's actually happening.
Right.
And it's one thing to talk about it, Mecca, but when it comes time for it to actually happen, and Marshall, brilliant political guy.
Oh, yeah.
And not that he doesn't believe this, I don't doubt. But he went through some of the cases with me out of Marshall County where he was a prosecutor and said, look, these are bad guys. And I was like, yeah, but they're still going to get out of jail here eventually.
Right.
What's wrong?
It's from 3 to 12 months, according to the law. You
2 to 10, actually.
Be released early.
2 to 10. And they let them out here with monitors and rules and all these other things. I think it's worth a try to see what's going to happen here. But the risk is...
Worth a try?
Well, no, I mean, the real risk here...
It's going to happen.
Right, of course it is. It happens every political season when you have AGs and prosecutors and stuff and lawmakers who pass laws and people who do pardons. You always have that news story. They pardoned this man and then he ate this baby or something. And all sorts of things. They did terrible things and then they use it against them. That's what these lawmakers are afraid of. That's what they're afraid of. They're afraid of that and they don't want to see it. The question is, will they stop it?
I mean, I think it makes good political sense to come out against it now, but if you're smart, I think you'd be asking, well, where were you in 2021?
Some people weren't there. That's one.
Fair.
They've pre-filed a bill. Some people who voted against it. Marshall was against it before. Chris Elliott, the senator who has the bill, who is going to be against this, he wants to push it back to 2030. Hey, so he wants to kill it. I mean, that's the whole thing.
Right, but let's also talk about there are massive problems with Alabama's prison system.
We don't have enough cages.
They're overcrowded. It's something that has to be dealt with, and obviously this is one of the ways it's being dealt with.
Yeah, that's right, for now. They were talking about building more cages. They just haven't got it done yet. That's still dragging at this point, so who knows what's coming with that. All right, let's move on to 2024. It looks like Nikki Haley is the first person in the race after Donald Trump on the Republican side. Ron DeSantis is expected to be in the race. If you're following this, on Trump's Truth Social site, he re-truthed, I think that's what it's called, when he was doing a bunch of people who were tweeting him saying, hey, this is terrible, these guys shouldn't be running against you. He's called DeSantis disloyal. But Nikki Haley, oddly enough, he's like, yeah, she should run. Yeah, she should run. And it makes me believe that Donald Trump knows that he saw some polling. In Alabama, down 20 points to DeSantis. But if there's 10 people in the race, Donald Trump is the front runner. So 2024 is starting to shape up, and I think DeSantis has kind of just ignored Donald Trump at this point, although this week he did sort of make a scoreboard reference. He's like, look at the scoreboard, look at what we've done down in Florida, just the way it is, not attacking directly. How worried is Trump about DeSantis?
Obviously a lot, because he is on the attack from it. And you have to think about DeSantis is in a very good position. He doesn't need to talk about Trump. He's getting tons of good conservative coverage every week as a sitting governor.
Yep.
You know, Trump has to go on the attack. It's a little different for him. It's a different situation. Where is his campaign? What is it doing? You know, DeSantis just naturally gets these headlines because he's a governor.
And he is racking up win after win after win. And people say, well, are they really wins? He's trying to remove books from schools. It's like, look, every teacher that says, oh, these rules are too hard for me to understand, so I'm going to take my books out of the classroom. My students are crying. I mean, it's very simple. Curious George is okay. By Curious George is not okay. Okay, it's truly that simple.
How long have you been holding that?
It's simple though. I mean, and they're pretending they can't figure it out. And when that happens, what happens? DeSantis gets another W every single time.
It does. They are handing W's.
I mean, every single time.
Absolutely.
Because parents are tired of this, and it bothers you that was so good. I can tell. I can tell. All right, let's move on to the next thing. The realtors in the state of Alabama have put out a report, and that report says we're doing okay. I mean, that's basically the gist of it. Not perfect. Things are slowing down a little bit. Foreclosures are up, but they're still below the national average. The outlook is pretty good. In some places, you're still seeing houses being sold for above asking price. That's a good sign for the economy. But again, the number of houses being sold is coming down a little bit. The market, they say, is set up pretty well for people to continue to come into the state looking for better economic opportunities. Wages continue to do okay in the state of Alabama. But, and this is the thing that I find very interesting, two different reports, this one and one from the University of Alabama, show trepidation for the future. One of the forecasters out of the University of Alabama said, a recession's coming. It could turn around, but a recession's coming. But it could also get much worse, which is kind of like stuff could happen. I mean, so something could happen. But they all seem to think we're still leading towards a slowdown, but what is called a soft landing.
Yeah.
And if you read those two reports together, they seem to kind of think the same thing.
Well, the reports, but then also if you talk to people on the ground and what's happening in local markets, I can tell you up here in North Alabama, there was, somewhat of a pause as the interest rates went up and things like that. But it's coming back residentially. In commercial, the interest has not died down.
Yep.
Like, this is a very, very hot market. Lots of people are looking at it. And you would think if people are, fearful of a coming recession, why are they still pursuing commercial ventures?
The only thing I warn you on, and you know this, North Alabama fared better than every other place in the state and the country during the 2008-2009 slowdown. I think the same thing's happening here outside North Alabama. I'm not saying things are cratering everywhere or anything like that, but yes, you're correct. And there are two places in Alabama that are just booming, in North and South. I mean, that's it. And everywhere else is they're doing okay.
But not horrible.
No,
and I think that's what these reports show.
And that's the point. That's the point I was going to make is everything seems to be okay, below the national average in foreclosures and things like that. So positive signs.
Absolutely. It's a good time to be in Alabama.
Yeah, it's positive signs compared to what we're seeing elsewhere, which is a little bit worse. So
low unemployment, the workforce needs. I mean, people need a place to live.
Businesses are still coming.
Yes.
Money's still being spent. Apartments are still, we're talking about Huntsville. Apartment City is what, it's not the Rocket City anymore. It's apartment. They're tearing down a rocket on the freeway to put up an apartment.
That's not true, but they are, record sky high rates for rent as well.
Yeah, I think that fever is going to break soon, though. That's what I think.
You think so?
I could be wrong, but that's a North Alabama conversation. All right, let's have a conversation here about gambling. Oh, very excited. I got a bachelor party planned for Lake Tahoe coming up. Oh, we're not talking about that? Okay, let's talk about another part of they're going gambling there in Lake Tahoe.
About? That's terrible.
And we are now instead talking about gambling losses. Let's be serious here for a second. Job losses, where we are talking about in Macon County, where Victoryland Casino, they basically said, hey, this electronic bingo you've been doing forever? Yeah, that's a slot machine with extra steps. You know that. You have to stop doing that. And they said, no, we don't. And then the Supreme Court said, no, really, you do. And they said, okay, fine, we will. Now we're going to lay off hundreds of people. Here's my question on all of this. You can come back and talk about any part of that you want. But my question on this is this. Does that make the gambling interest, who are clearly losing money now?
I mean, obviously.
Does it make them more likely to come to the table and say, let's make a deal that doesn't give us just a monopoly or a quasi-monopoly, whatever you want to call it, and actually opens up gambling to the rest of the state? Does it make that part, because there's like 20 groups in
Exactly.
here.
I was going to say it makes maybe that one specific area, like that one little piece of the pie, maybe more likely to come to the table and look for a resolution. I would agree with that. But as you said, we're talking about that one specific group.
And
There's a lot of other interests involved in this
I would
conversation.
argue there are like 4 main groups, but that's one part of the 4 main groups.
It is.
One part of one of the 4 main groups. So you have the gambling interest, the Porch Creeks, the anti-gamblers altogether, and the free market people.
Right.
And you've got to please all these people, or at least a good number of them, to get anything done. And except for the anti-gamblers, you just have to beat them by force. But you just do.
No, and I don't think that's as powerful of a group as it used to be.
No, I agree, but they're not moving. No. They're not going to be convinced by job losses or anything like this. They don't want it at all. So forget about them. And you got to get these other people on board. And now you've weakened the position of one of these to stand firm and do nothing. So now they can come in and say, okay, maybe you want to cut a deal here. In their press releases and statements, they're still like, no, we just need to protect these 4 things. And it's like, this isn't really now you're like playing videos of horses racing and letting people bet on that. That is not the same fun as a slot machine.
But does it happen this session?
It's possible. Look, remember what we said about the jailbreak?
Yeah.
Right before the legislative, right before the legislative session.
Yes.
Or right at the end of a election year. Now here we go. Boom. There we go. So strike while the iron's hot. I mean, this is the time if they're going to do it. No
I'm
question.
excited.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Well, don't get excited because it's not.
No.
It's all right. All right. When we come back, Cameron Smith will be with us from AL.com. We'll talk with him. Stay tuned.
You work hard to earn little escapes because doing your best means being your best. So let us help you discover your best at Premier Dental Spa. With our unique blend of cosmetic, dental, and spa-like aesthetic services, you'll leave feeling relaxed, refreshed, and renewed. Make sure the best you is here to stay and book your appointment online today at premierdentalspa.com.
Hey folks, Dale Jackson here for my friends at University Kia. Now look, I love Kias. I've driven plenty of them. I used to have a Kia Sportage. When my son was born, my wife said, no, we got to get ourselves one of these big SUVs. The Telluride from University Kia is an absolutely amazing vehicle. You get it at a great price, but you get everything at University Kia at a great price. Learn more about them today. Head on over to universitykia.com. Find the perfect vehicle for you, new and pre-owned. They got it for you. universitykia.com.
Want fun, safe, intelligent fitness programming? Want to build muscular strength, cardiovascular endurance, drastically improved range of motion and mobility, and learn proper nutrition to fuel your life with energy and emotional health? Well, come find out why Iron Tribe Fitness is ranked one of the top 5 fitness programs in America. Come find out why personal training and intentionally working on your current movement patterns individually is not only important, it's just another core value that separates Iron Tribe Fitness from other fitness facilities.
To learn how to get your 2-week free pass, go to irontribefitness.com.
Hey folks, Dale Jackson here, and this is my son, Grant. Now, I'm here to talk to you about Top Shelf Customized Cleaning. He's a handful, I'm a handful, and if I want to stay married, I need Top Shelf Customized Cleaning to come and take care of my house. They do an amazing job for me, and they'll do an amazing job for you. Cindy loves them. I love them. Grant loves them as well. Check them out on Facebook. Top Shelf Customized Cleaning. And don't forget, call them today, 256-417-9122. And when you talk to them, make sure you tell them Grant sent you.
Have you filed for disability benefits but were denied by the Social Security Administration? Or do you need to apply for benefits and are overwhelmed with paperwork? Are you between the ages of 50 to 63 and can no longer work because of an illness or injury? Thousands of hardworking Americans are in your situation. They file for disability benefits every month and are unnecessarily denied their much-needed benefit check. Call now for a no-obligation, free evaluation. We can help you nearly double your chances of approval and get your benefit checks faster. We understand the physical, emotional, and financial impact and will share our insider expertise. There is a time limit to apply. We're here to help you get your disability claim filed and paid as soon as possible. Please, time is limited. So, if you are between the ages of 50 to 63 and can no longer work because of an illness or injury, call right now and let us help you file your disability claim with the Social Security Administration.
Welcome back to Alabama Politics This Week. I am Dale Jackson. With us this week. Oh, sorry, Mecca Music's here as well. Sorry about that. Sorry. It was just wishful thinking. Cameron Smith is here with us from AL.com. We appreciate him joining us. I want to talk with Cameron first when we get started here. This thing with Steve Marshall. You know, I've had a couple of things said to me. People have reached out and said, Marshall's just playing politics. Marshall's normally, or not normally, but Marshall's just doing all of this to get attention. I'm like, yeah, but he was against it when the law was originally passed that said we're going to let these prisoners out later on. He was against it. He's still against it. He laid out some good arguments. He actually won the day, got some of this stuff pushed back a little bit. Cameron, is Marshall playing politics or is he playing good policy? Or is he doing both?
I think it's mostly politics. I understand that he was against it, but he was wrong initially, and he's still wrong. It's just easy to be tough on crime in Alabama because it's popular, and to try to explain to conservatives, hey, actually, these incarceration policies take money out of your pockets for some class of inmates who have committed crimes, giving them an opportunity to make their victims whole, to become productive members of society again, actually makes a lot of sense from a policy standpoint. Marshall can go browbeat and say, hey, you're not tough on crime, you're soft on crime. But we've seen this game over and over again on the same issues all over the country. And so this is nothing new. Marshall knows the deal. He's consistent here in his position. Unfortunately, it's just not great policy.
Cameron, in the hallways of AL.com, when something happens, and it will, I mean, come on, we're letting a bunch of people out of prison who've been in prison, they're going to do something. When that happens, will AL.com begrudgingly cover that, or will they gleefully cover that and say, look what these guys did? What's the angle going to be?
Oh, we've seen that this stuff gets covered, obviously. It's easy to say, well, it's statistically a minority of the folks that will recidivate and commit further crime, but it's certainly not zero. But again, if you're looking at the program as a whole, it still makes sense. And hey, this is the way media function. I mean, if it bleeds, it leads, and that's the type of thing that people love to sensationalize. It's unfortunate that the same outlet can be consistent and correct on policy and then do things that are unhelpful to that policy objective. And unfortunately, I bet that's what happens.
Cameron, back to Marshall, though. Let's look at, as you said, is it politics, is it policy? Whatever it is, it's very loud, and it's making a lot of noise and getting a lot of headlines, a lot of coverage. What happens now? Is the law rescinded?
So here's the deal. If the legislators that supported this and some of their new colleagues hold their ground, Marshall's star declines in Alabama. So looking at the governor's race or other things like that, it says, hey, he may not have that clout. However, he's been very loud, very specific, very direct on this point. And if he can get them to essentially fold and say, actually, we were wrong about this, we need to go with Steve Marshall, I think you got to look at him and say, man, you got a nice amount of wind in your sails looking at a potential gubernatorial run.
Will Ainsworth is going to be a hard one to overcome in that space, even with that happening. But I will point this out. Chris Elliott has the bill pre-filed. You have Steve Marshall out there leading this charge. Who's the let him out guys? Who are those people? What legislators are going to make that argument? I mean, it's easy to let the thing die because a couple weeks passes before the legislature, all that stuff. Who is let's go ahead and let him out. Who's the face of that?
Oh, nobody. I think it would be foolish politically to do that. The onus is on Marshall, Elliott, other folks to create the political momentum to succeed. They can do that. It's a big deal. But the other folks are going to say, hey, I got other priorities. This one right here is something we thought about. We are not letting out, hardened murderers. Like, these are folks that have committed crimes. We have a system. We have a process. We need to be consistent. And frankly, I'd hang some of it on the governor and say, hey, go explain to folks that we're doing the right thing and that this is well thought out, not just sort of, we just reactionarily released some prisoners into the state of Alabama. She might not. I suspect we won't hear much at all. The real question is, does Marshall have the juice to get this one through the legislature?
Okay, so that's more of a political question. I agree. But my point in making that statement, I think we agree, is nobody's making that argument. Kay Ivey's not holding a press conference and saying, no, hold on. Let me see all these guys behind me. with face tattoos, I'm for letting them out of jail. Yeah, that's
But
completely
no,
fine.
to get the facts out and talk about
right,
the things
but
Cameron.
I'm just painting the picture here that there's a reason why she's not going to make that argument.
I don't think that'd be the picture.
Why? Correct. Just telling you how it will be painted by people like me. All right? That's the way I'm trying to explain it to you. All right, let's talk about gambling here for a second. Some jobs lost, a lot of them, hundreds of jobs lost at Victory Lane in Macon County. I've always argued, Cameron, that you've got to make these illegal gambling interests hurt in order to force them to the table. They were in a position of strength. We're saying the status quo was very profitable for us. We're running electronic bingo. We know it's illegal. You know it's illegal. The cops know it's illegal. Everyone knows it's illegal, and no one's going to do anything about it except us for going to make some money off of it. Now the Supreme Court has said you can't do that and taken that away from them. Are they more likely to break and come to the table and say, okay, let's make a different deal than we've been trying to push for the last 20 years?
Yes. If they are more likely, are they so likely? This depends, again, we're talking a lot about Steve Marshall. It depends on the state's willingness to continue to push if these folks continue to try to fudge on the charitable bingo slot machine dichotomy. If they're saying, oh, well, the Supreme Court ruling, that governs, and we're going to stop that now, okay, then maybe they come to the table. What we've seen in Alabama time and time again is, well, we'll just iterate this. We'll come up with another version that we say is actually, this is really bingo now, charitable bingo now. It's still a slot machine, but we'll make a good faith argument and then dare the state to come after us again. I don't know where we are in that process, but this is not the first rodeo, and I don't know what brings them to the table in a way where they would give up, something significant that would work for the Porch Creeks, for the other gambling interest, and frankly for people that want to get in on the action, but say, I'm a small operator. Those are very diverse interests, and there's not really, I haven't seen one solution that fits all of their interests.
And Cameron, speaking of, we've seen this before. I think more than 180 bills have been filed since 1999 that deal with gambling and obviously haven't gone anywhere. What are the chances specifically for this legislative session to get something done?
About the same as they've been for a while.
Okay.
Because what happens is people have a couple of interests, they push some legislation, and then what kills it is there's somebody who gets gored at the end that doesn't get what they want. It's not a free market solution. It's not a conservative piece of legislation. It's just cronyism, and ultimately that's what kills it.
So these shutdowns then don't change the chances to you in your mind?
I don't see what new piece of legislation comes out that fits the bill of being free market, accommodating the diverse interest in the space, and it can pass the legislature. I just don't see it.
I've been doing talk radio for about 17 years in this state. There's been probably 3 good faith efforts, I think, to move gambling forward here. Maybe we see one this year. Maybe we'll see number 4. Cameron, I do want to ask you about 2024. I think it's important here to discuss Haley, DeSantis, and Trump. Is Trump still the front runner? Let's say these are the only 3 that get in. Everyone else says, okay, no more. No one, we're done. Who's the front runner right now?
DeSantis. And you can say that because DeSantis hasn't formally announced, and in numerous polls he's polling ahead of Trump. Now, there's a couple that Trump's ahead, depending on which polling source you're using, but you've got a declared former president who's up and down versus a challenger who hasn't said he's in the race yet. Haley is very interesting, but I think she's looking at, I want to get in, throw my hat in the ring, and I'm going to be a vice presidential contender. Mm-hmm. I think a DeSantis-Haley ticket is quite formidable against anything the Democrats could throw up that isn't Michelle Obama. And I think Trump has to prove to his followers and to other folks, what else am I bringing to the table? Who am I bringing with me that's going to add to my coalition? Or am I simply just dividing and isolating a Republican base that isn't enough to make me a winner? And I think it's the latter right now.
And Cameron, we had that same conversation about DeSantis Haley ticket and how powerful that would be. And referencing the polls, one of the ones that came out on Alabama voters showed a significant lead for DeSantis. And I would like to see more polls to see if that translates and those numbers are backed up again. Do you feel that he has as much notoriety nationwide as he does in Florida, in Alabama, in this kind of core region?
Well, you've got to realize that Florida's a must-win for Republicans. And so it's great to see a governor from Florida doing it. He's clearly figured out, I mean, let's be blunt about it. He's almost certainly going to run. And the way he's angling in Florida and working on things is to really, really go after that core populist base that Trump is so popular with. And I think his name ID is quite high. And frankly, Trump is doing him a favor while DeSantis remains silent. Trump starting to attack him, say things that aren't true, the whole de-sanctimonious thing. I think that actually helps DeSantis and getting more name ID out there. But again, the issue for DeSantis is, can I get enough of Trump's base to support me in the primary so that I can win that primary to be in a good shape for the general? Trump, meanwhile, has to convince folks that he can win a general to be an effective candidate in the primary.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. It's sort of the whole lose the general or lose the primary to win the general or something. It's very hard to do it that way. Cameron Smith, AL.com. We appreciate him being here. Thank you very much. We'll talk with him soon. Mecca's out of here. Show gets so much better when that happens. So when we come back, I've got the party shot. Stay tuned. It's Alabama Politics This Week. Hey folks, Dale Jackson here for my friends at University Kia. Now look, I love Kias. I've driven plenty of them. I used to have a Kia Sportage. When my son was born, my wife said, no, we got to get ourselves one of these big SUVs. The Telluride from University Kia is an absolutely amazing vehicle. You get it at a great price, but you get everything at University Kia at a great price. Learn more about them today. Head on over to universitykia.com. Find the perfect vehicle for you, new and pre-owned. They got it for you. universitykia.com.
You work hard to earn little escapes because doing your best means being your best. So let us help you discover your best at Premier Dental Spa. With our unique blend of cosmetic, dental, and spa-like aesthetic services, you'll leave feeling relaxed, refreshed, and renewed. Make sure the best you is here to stay and book your appointment online today at premierdentalspa.com.
Hey folks, Dale Jackson here, and this is my son, Grant. Now, I'm here to talk to you about Top Shelf Customized Cleaning. He's a handful, I'm a handful, and if I want to stay married, I need Top Shelf Customized Cleaning to come and take care of my house. They do an amazing job for me, and they'll do an amazing job for you. Cindy loves them. I love them. Grant loves them as well. Check them out on Facebook. Top Shelf Customized Cleaning. And don't forget, call them today, 256-417-9122. And when you talk to them, make sure you tell them Grant sent you. Welcome back to Alabama Politics This Week. I am Dale Jackson. Thank you very much for being here. Before I jump into the party shot, let me remind you, head on over to yellowhammernews.com. Sign up for my 7 things. It's the 7 things you should be talking about today. Emailed to your email inbox every single weekday. You'll know the 7 things you should be talking about that day and every single day. Now, let's go ahead and get to my party shot. My party shot this week is directed towards all of those who are making this situation with Tyre Nichols way worse than it already is, and it is very bad. 5 police officers on camera beating down and killing another individual. There are problems here. There are police problems, but there is actually a silver lining to all of this, and oddly enough, Benjamin Crump, one of the activists who you see in a lot of these cases that are kind of similar to this, has said this is the blueprint on how things should be handled. A couple of weeks, there was an investigation. All the police officers involved have been charged with murder and fired. And instead of everyone standing up and applauding that, we are now trying to find individual angles we can take on this to where we can make this a bigger story. At the funeral of Tyre Nichols, Al Sharpton stood up and said that they did this because they knew there would be no accountability. But there is accountability, and that is the point to all of this. We should be praising the way Memphis did this because they held these people accountable. Now, there's going to be a court case and all these other things. There's mitigating factors and all that other stuff. But we should, when we see things happen that are terrible, we can then say that they are handled okay and hope that that's the blueprint for how we handle things in the future. Refusing to see the good when that happens makes your credibility sort of go away when you're screaming about something else. It's just worth noting, occasionally you can say this thing is terrible, but it was handled okay, because if we're being honest, this one actually was. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you very much for watching and listening all over the state of Alabama. We'll be back next week with Alabama Politics This Week.